Hello and welcome. As India takes on the G20 presidency, the Department of Youth Affairs, Government of India has also taken upon themselves to garner recommendations from the key demographic, which is the youth. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Upasna from TiE Delhi-NCR, and we at TiE Delhi-NCR are really excited as well as honored to towards being the host of one of the first round tables that the Department of Youth Affairs is undertaking. Youth form the backbone of any country. They are key towards nation building, and entrepreneurs are forever young. It's gratifying that the government is keen to include the views of entrepreneurs. We are very thankful to the department for having given us the opportunity to host these roundtables. For us, this is the first. We will be hosting some of the others in our other chapters as well. I would now like to call upon our Executive Director, Geetika Dayal, to please present a bouquet to Ms. Meeta Rajiv Lochan, Secretary, Youth Affairs. Thanks, Geetika. I'd now like to invite ma'am, Ms. Meeta Rajiv Lochan, Secretary, Youth Affairs, to address the audience. Welcome, ma'am.
So friends, a very warm welcome to all of you. The Youth20 Engagement Group is planning to hold consultations throughout the country to consult young people across different professional groups, different age groups about what their vision for the future is and how do they wish to get there. Friends, the G20 presidency is India's moment. And this is the opportunity for Indian youth to get together and to brainstorm about ideas for a better tomorrow. Now, the Prime Minister's vision of India is that India be a Vishwa Guru. So, who is a Vishwa Guru? A Vishwa Guru, we would submit, is someone who or an agency that provides guidance to others. What that guidance might be. What is it that you would like to tell the world? I think that is what we are here to brainstorm about today. And I believe that India has a great deal to offer the world about models of living, provided we look closely at ourselves and provided we consult our lived experiences much more. So we can identify what it was that enabled the Indian economy to withstand the COVID shock. What is it that makes us so resilient? One of the things that is talked about is the India Stack, the unique digital infrastructure that we've been able to build up, or the Aadhaar authentication, the DigiLocker, the UPI ID. All these are things that have helped to catalyze the digitization of Indian economy and have contributed in so many ways. So it has been a very serious force multiplier. What we would like to point out over here is that today perhaps the India stack looks like a given. But let's think back a bit to 10 years ago when it was emerging. There it was not a given. And yet, whenever we plan a portal of this kind, a infrastructure of this kind, we do need to imagine what the future might be like. And we need to build those interfaces now. If you were to build those interfaces several years later, that would make it much more complex and very difficult to do. The reason that India has been able to build the digital stack is not just because of the IT expertise that this country possesses, which of course it does possess in spades. But at the same time, it's because we were able to learn from the experiences of others. And I think we need to note the extensive consultations that went round over the years about how the Aadhaar project was to be structured. And I think that is one of the greatest strengths of India as a nation. That when we look at our process of decision making, every decision is preceded by very extensive consultations. A lot of the time, it does happen that all these discussions do delay decisions, but at the same time, we need to recognize that the decision therefore becomes that much more robust. So, going back 12 years, who would have said that the Aadhaar database should be interfaced with banking, that it should be interfaced with health? Yeah, but yes, that's how they structured it, because there was so much dialogue among the stakeholders. And today, if the Aadhaar database has been able to interface with health to generate the unique CoWIN platform that has allowed us to vaccinate 1 billion plus people. So that kind of thing is definitely India's strength. I also think that COVID has changed the way in which the world looks at us. It was a matter of wonder. And I don't think that many people expected that Indians would be able to both vaccinate themselves and provide a kind and caring society to all those who were affected by COVID. If the world has changed the way in which they look at us, I think it is high time that Indians also change the way in which we look at ourselves. In order to be a Vishwa Guru, in order to provide guidance to others, we need to have a high sense of self-esteem. And I think that we need to stop this constant self-flagellation that we like to indulge in. All societies have their faults, they have their warts, but they also have their strengths. And one can only build on what is strong. I think the strength of Indian democracy is something that needs to be recognized. Now, I have heard ever since I was a child about the concept of unity in diversity. But friends, I would like to put it to you that human beings are diverse by nature. That's how we are structured. No two human beings are alike. So I would say that what is unique about India is not that we are so diverse, all nations are. What is unique about India is that despite being so diverse, despite speaking so many different languages, I think we revel in our individuality. We are still able to pull along with each other. We are still able to live together, and we are still able to sustain the social fabric of India. And I think that when it is often said that the constitution is responsible for the strength of Indian democracy, it's important to distinguish between cause and effect. If the constitution is so strong, that is because Indians are like that. That is because a like of consensus and a dislike of coercion are part and parcel of our civilizational values. That is how the framers of the constitution made it. So provided we look at ourselves, we understand our strengths, we build on those strengths, there is so much that we can offer. Indians are full of energy, they're full of innovation. I think the one respect in which we do need to do more is the ability to imagine a future for us. The future is unknowable, all of us know that. But at the same time, it is important that we try to think what it might be like, and once we do that, then we should be able to marshal the different resources, the different skills that might be required. Now, that is not a task for any one individual, it is not a task for a few individuals. It is a task that can only be accomplished if we work together, if we think together, if we brainstorm together. And that's why I was so very happy when I came across TiE and their offer to begin this brainstorming series. Because I think this model that TiE has about a mentoring network, I think that's key, and that is something which we really need above all in India. A mentoring network is what we need in order to build a learning ecosystem. How do we strengthen that ecosystem? In fact, this year the Department of Youth Affairs is planning to start a pilot project. This is for summer internships in 300 colleges, pan-India. There we are looking at undergrad students in the general courses. You know, the vast majority of students in India are there in general courses, that's BA, BSc, BCom. And very few of them are able to find an opportunity for a placement. So we are collaborating with different organizations to see whether it's possible to provide them with, place them with small businesses, small, very small ones. And here what we really need is a mentoring network. So I would really like to know your ideas, your thoughts on this, and how can we take it forward. I think in the discussions in the last 10 years, the one thing that has become clear is that students at all levels need exposure to hands-on experience, to experiential learning, and that is how they learn all the skills that are needed to not only make them better people but also make them more employable and that contribute to their success. So it is this segmentation of knowledge that is for me a troubling thing. When we look back at Indian history, we find that Indians in the past have been powerful as a producer of goods. Indians' steel was weapons grade steel. It was sold as weapons grade steel for thousands of years. India had very significant contributions in the field of medicine. Today we like to talk about Ayurveda. It's not a coincidence that the largest steel producers in the world today are Indian. It's not a coincidence that Indian doctors are some of the best in the world. Here we are simply going back to old patterns that have persisted in our society. Indians produced very superior textiles. So that is what our primary achievement and accomplishment was. Yet when we look back at the 18th century, we find that all this production collapsed within the space of a mere 50 years. It collapsed once modern systems of creating efficiencies based on scientific research were discovered. In fact, we researched this puzzle a bit and we wrote a book about it a couple of years ago. It is called Making India Great Again, Learning from Our History. In that book, we tell that it is basically the lack of a learning ecosystem, a lack of mentoring networks that has contributed a great deal to our problems in the past. When we look back 200 years ago, we find that Indian businessmen were some of the best in the world. They were some of the richest in the world. While the British East India Company learnt a lot from Indian business, the reverse did not happen. Normally, in history, we see spectacles of a weak nation losing to a powerful one. Here it was the reverse. Here it was a powerful nation that was losing out to a weak one. Basically, the world created newer pathways for moving ahead, and we seem to get stuck in some kind of rut. And in fact, I see many discussions that go on Facebook and so many other social media pages. They all say, so you know, if India has so many accomplishments, then you should be able to make the world in your own image. How can we do that? How can we make the world in our own image? I think for that it is very important that we sit together in groups, that we brainstorm about what a better future might be, and we think and debate about how to get there. Our book is a chronicle of how a great nation, a powerful society can lose out to others because it is unable to imagine what the future might be. That is our task, to imagine what the future might be and how do we get there, how do we become a better people, a better society, a happier, more inclusive society, and a great nation. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, ma'am. A spectacular demographic dividend in the form of the youth and the kind of support that the government is ready to offer. I think we're sitting on a cusp of something really phenomenal. I would now like to invite Rajan Anandan. Rajan is the MD, Sequoia Capital and Surge, and on the Governing Council of TiE Delhi-NCR. Over to Rajan for a keynote address.
Good afternoon, everyone. Secretary Ji, Srikanth, members of TiE, thank you all for coming. I think hopefully the next couple of hours will be very useful, both for the ministry, but also very helpful for all of you. You know, last year, since we're talking about youth, last year was a very interesting year. For the very first time in the history of China, China's population declined. And I think in the next 18 to 24 months, because we haven't done a census in about a decade, so we don't actually know how many Indians there are, we have an estimate. So either this year or sometime certainly in the next 18 months, India will become the most populous nation in the world. By the way, they've said we already have, but we don't really know. So I'm just buying ourselves a bit of margin for error here, because we haven't done a census in a while. But actually, so think about this, right? Like literally within the next 18 months, for sure, because that they've run all the statistics and that's the margin for error, India will become the most populous nation in the world. Now, what's very interesting is not that, since we're talking about youth. What's very interesting is, by the end of this century, which is 2100, which interestingly, I mean, it's shocking to think about this, right? Which is only 77 years from now. Actually, I'm just looking around the room. Some of you will still probably be building your companies. Srikanth and I may not be. I don't know about you, G, what you'd be up to, because medicine is a marvelous thing these days. What's happening? By the year 2100, India will have 1.55 billion people. Any guesses? Now, China, by the way, right now is 1.4 billion, okay? China has 1.4 billion people. Any guesses what China's population will be by the end of this century? Let's take a guess. Anybody want to take a guess? So China's population today is 1.4 billion. Last year was the first year where China's population went down. In fact, every month now there are fewer Chinese babies being born than Chinese that don't exist. So what do you think the population of China will be by the end of this century, which is only 77 years from now? Any guesses? 700 million. Other guesses? Less than 1 billion for sure. 1 billion, okay. Less than 1 billion, okay. Secretary, any guesses? No, this is a very important, because this is the Ministry of Youth, because we're talking about it's extraordinary. Any other guesses? Actually, you're both we're close. 770 million. So I want you to imagine a world 77 years from now where India has a population of 1.55 billion. And by the way, India's population peaks at 1.7 billion in the year 2067. Unless, of course, something changes, which could. Imagine a world where India has 1.55 billion people and China only has 770 million. That's extraordinary, right? And every other country, by the way, almost every other country except a few countries in Africa will actually have severely declining populations. So I think the thing with Indian youth and India more broadly is India will actually power the world. And I think that's where, in many ways, what has started today, which is the new entrepreneurial revolution, right? That's really started, I'd say, after liberalization in 1991. As you rightly pointed out, Secretary Ji, we have 5,000 years of entrepreneurship. But quite frankly, we had about 250-year gap, pause, which actually restarted. Unfortunately, during the license era, that 50 years or so of the license Raj era, we kind of didn't quite get there. But certainly since 1991, there's been 2 or 3 waves: IT services wave, the pharma wave, the auto components wave, and now obviously the technology-led innovation internet wave, right? Clearly, India today is at a very interesting place when it comes to entrepreneurship, innovation, startups. And there is no question, and today what we are seeing is startups that are innovating just about every industry that you can imagine, both in India, but also for the world, right? For a long time, our ecosystem was really all about, every 2 years there'd be a big trend. Those of you that are building e-commerce businesses, are any of you building e-commerce businesses? Or brands or consumer products? Yeah, of course, yes, congratulations. Sold a company recently, made a lot of money, you should make sure you fully engage him into this Youth20. So if you go back to 2015 and 16, it was all about e-commerce. Then it became about ride-hailing. Then it became about ed-tech. Then it became about fintech, right? But today, if you look at India and the startup ecosystem, there is innovation everywhere, in every single core sector or core industry of the nation, right? Whether it's agriculture, there are over 1,000 startups. There are over 2,000 new consumer brands, right? You know, you built one. Mama Earth has just listed, is filed their DHRP to go public. There are several thousand new brands, right? You look at digital health, you look at edtech, you look at financial services or fintech. And then even if you look at some new emerging exciting sectors like climate tech, right? Some of the most interesting battery companies are actually going to be new battery chemistry companies. In fact, one of the world's most interesting new battery chemistry companies is in Noida. You know, they're going to use zinc. They're building the world's first zinc battery, and it works. It's powering actually a Shell station in Bangalore, right? So in many ways, across all sectors, you know, imagine every sector that you can imagine today, Indian entrepreneurs are innovating in those sectors. And I think what we're very excited about today is we already have the largest youth population in the world. We're going to have twice the size of the Chinese population in literally like 77 years. And quite frankly, we have an opportunity not just to innovate for India and transform India in every sector that we have in India, but we have not just the potential, actually the responsibility. Because imagine, you know, if like we have 1.55 billion people and the whole world only has like 7, you know, we actually have a responsibility to power the world. And I think hopefully today through the brainstorm sessions, what we'll get is lots of ideas that all of you have around what can we do to unleash the youth of India, right? Whether it's unleash them in entrepreneurship, whether it's unleash them in terms of getting them more engaged in whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's governance, whether it's policy, whether it's, you know, improving our communities, and also what are some of the important ideas around how do we make our youth more productive by dramatically improving education, by giving them access to opportunities. So thank you for joining us. I hope all of you have a terrific brainstorm over the next couple of hours.
Thank you very much, Rajan. I'm already feeling powered, and sort of always happens after Rajan finishes speaking. Thank you so much, Rajan. Before I hand over and invite Srikanth here, I will just take 2 minutes to elaborate upon the format that we are going to be executing here. We're going to have 2 sets of roundtables. One is going to be talking about reimagining businesses for the future, and the other one is going to be on making sustainability a way of life. We would request you all to sort of pull your chairs in small circles. And we will divide the whole set of you into 5 groups. Each set will have a leader of their group. We will be spending 40 minutes in that brainstorming over the topic, which is the first one, which is the reimagining businesses of the future. And then the leader of that group will be requested to make, and while the discussions are on, the leader of the group is requested to make notes as we go along. And towards the end, we will be spending some time on and requesting each of those leaders to share their thoughts with us. Before we close that 40 minutes, we will be sort of giving you all a heads up 5 minutes early to let you know that the 40 minutes are going to be up. So that's how we are going to be dividing it. I'll now invite Srikanth Shastri, President TiE Delhi-NCR, to come up on the stage and speak with us. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got these 2 topics coming up, but I'm going to set the stage for that, but I'm going to pick on that big number that Rajan spoke about, 1.55 billion Indians. And we need to do something in this room today to ensure that those 1.55 billions live in a much better world than we do. So that's the pressure we are under to come up with great recommendations. So keep that in mind when you do your brainstorming. The other thing I think we should all keep in mind is a point that Madam Secretary made about us needing to increase the level of our self-esteem and to also ensure that our learning process suddenly sharply grows, because that's the multiplier effect that will lead to us creating a better world for our future Indians. In that context, I think while all of us have clear visibility for what's happening in Noida, Gurgaon, Bangalore, Bombay, Pune, I think the real change will happen in the smaller cities, tier 2, tier 3 towns. So I'm just going to start with a small story. This was 2 years before COVID, October 2018. I was at Patna for a 2-day startup event organized by IIT Patna, 250 people in the auditorium. There were 5 young people in that room who looked very different, talked very differently. They were the most active people, as younger people would call them. They were the most enthu cutlets in the room. And they were asking all the questions, networking with speakers. So in the break, I caught hold of them and said, "Where are you from?" They had taken a 28-hour train journey from Bhilwara in Rajasthan to come to Patna, changing 2 trains. And they would do the same on the way back. So I said, "Why did you take so much trouble?" They said, "In our college, in Bhilwara, which is a technical college, not even a full-fledged engineering college, all of us no longer want to pursue jobs. We want to be entrepreneurs. And in Bhilwara, we don't get opportunities to interact with people, so when we saw this ad on social media, we booked our train tickets and came." That's when I first realized that this change is seeping down to the smaller towns of India. Then I went back to Patna again in February 22 after COVID. This was at a startup event organized by Bihar Industries Association. There were 10 high-quality startups solving local problems who came on stage to receive awards. So I still remember what 3 of them said. They came and said, the big change that's happened in Bihar, they were all from districts of Bihar. They came up on stage and said, "Until 2 years ago, our parents would only want us to take a UPSC exam or BPSC exam. No other career was acceptable. Today, becoming an entrepreneur is acceptable in Bihar." If that change can happen in small towns of Bihar, you know that real change is happening. And which is why I believe that the future of work in India, future of business in India is really, really promising. And I see that in all the mentoring work that I do, incubator work that I do. We see that in TiE all the time. And which is why I think what people in this room need to do is to say, what more can the government do besides all the great stuff, Startup India, Digital India, etc., to make this world a better place. But by the way, this is not limited to the world of startups alone. Old world companies are changing. 2 months ago, I had an opportunity to engage with the biggest automobile company in India, no secret which one, Maruti Suzuki. Maruti Suzuki said, "We can't, the world around us is volatile. We'll get destroyed if we don't change our innovation strategy." They invited Maruti employees from all departments to say, "Come up with ideas that will help us grow revenues, create new lines of business, new business models." 59 teams from Maruti, from departments as diverse, R&D, manufacturing, sales, marketing, HR, finance participated, and I was involved in kind of mentoring and reviewing some of them. The final 23 teams presented to the board of Maruti Suzuki a range of ideas with the promise that the best ideas Maruti would actually start as lines of business, diversification, etc. So the startup innovation culture is suddenly being absorbed by bigger companies, so the future of work is changing, not just in startups in Bangalore, Delhi, Gurgaon, Bombay, but also in small towns and also in the bigger companies. And that's the future that's ahead of us, and hopefully if we make great recommendations today, we'll create a much better India for us. With that, let's get started for 40 minutes of brainstorming.
So these new content creators, people who are big on Instagram and YouTube, and by speaking, these guys have a large number of followers or subscribers. So they already have a distribution channel built. Right? Now we empower them by bringing analytics of their distribution channels and then bringing brands to connect with them or enabling them to release merch or be able to hone their skills or give them tools through which they can teach more people on the skill that they have on their social media channel. Right? So say for example, a person who's really good at physics is teaching physics on YouTube and has a following of say 2 lakh people. How can this person start establishing some ways of teaching physics to more people, establishing somewhat virtual tuition centers, establishing a way with which they can continue to do web sessions across their 2 lakh followers or subscribers they have.
Basically, what you're saying is instead of the customers being based in geographical locations or in small distances, you're having customers which are global. It's the way of doing business which is different, where you're not doing business locally, but rather than that, you're doing business globally and digitally. Medium. How do you do business? So, basically, the profile of your customer is changing. You're not only catering to customers which speak your language, which have habits similar to you, or cater to an audience which you see around yourself. So, there's a physical existence and there's
reimagining business for the future. Mainly say what we understand about backward if I need to explain it in a single line, I understand business means adding value. Value addition. Value addition to the customer, value addition to the society, value addition to the business community, value addition to the quality of life. So the way we start doing business right now is very if we say social media, immediately we think about social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Telegram, so many information is having it. This is enablers, as at the same time they are making life complicated because there are so many information, so many channels that we need to look. Of course, people about Facebook, LinkedIn, and WhatsApp continues to give us so many information that we cannot handle the groups of the information that is coming, and then mails, then the calls, and we are completely involved. Business
That was very interesting. I mean, because when you said this, very interesting thought came to my mind. You see, with AI being the way it is, right, like ChatGPT and all these things coming in, I think that the businesses, let's say 20 to 30 years in the future, are going to look a lot more like businesses are going to be more brick and mortar businesses. Right? What is going to happen is tech will have solved this thing. Tech will have solved sources. Tech will have solved all these problems that we are struggling with. Figuring out this overload of information, AI will solve. Distribution, figuring out how do I reach out to more people, how do I culturally solve for these things. ये सब tech solve कर देगा, इसकी margin cost zero है. Which means anybody can just plug in and they will have all these resources just available to them. Stuff we are struggling with. Unfortunately, I'll have no air.
We are getting too many things that is also making life complicated. So first, my opinion, future for the business is simplifying the life, adding value, and making life less complicated. Because now the business has made life complicated in many sectors. We need to demystify that and make it less complicated. And I also endorse the opinion that when we say year after year, there should be growth. I need to say that if you are earning 100 rupees a day, you will say next year, direct price for internet. after next year you will see this type of innovative and this should continue. I don't think so this is sustainable for the world because everything is a limited, resource is a limited, resource is limited. This cannot multiply forever and forever.
Every few years the bar keeps on moving. And the real point about the future is seeing these boundaries in unreal ways. We were talking about the platform. I think I'm glad I was what he says. Maybe we also back to picture what the teaching is younger to 1990s में जो start
What I understand is speed cannot be the future of the business. Controlling the speed is sustainable.
What you're saying is you're opposed to both at once. What you're saying is you're opposed to both at once.
Not both at all. Both is sustainable. Very sustainable.
As you mentioned, value addition that's really what you are doing. When
usually so that we can understand problems. Other countries, every country has to go and serve the country, either in
When he's saying that, decentralization on every aspect of, let's say, agriculture, or let's say, producing food, let's just take it, हम लोग कहीं पे farmers कहीं पे produce करते हैं, and instead of वो कहीं से आ रहा है, being stored at one place, then it's being distributed. So can businesses can way of life in the future be such that it's more community, such that there is, say, a community taking care of a larger farm through which they are taking the produce to eat every day. Just in more like a cooperative model, that is more community based, more cooperative, so that so that people have responsibility towards that land. And by building responsibility towards that land, we end up maintaining water cycles, we end up maintaining fertility, we end up maintaining nutrition for that soil, and we have more connect with the foods that we're eating. And when we understand what we're eating. So that's just in terms of agriculture.
So we have got our objectives and
has high blood glucose. So that means they are very diabetes. Another point is so-fast adolescents are having they're physically inactive for adolescents in our country. This is because yes, enabling the future development has to be there and enables them to move out and
just not empowering trying to empower students or something like that might not work. We need to look at a cooperative way we are moving forward.
पहले मुझे एक सिटी से जाना होता था much more time but अभी जाना होता है there are fast trains there are flights फ्लाइट पर भी आ जाएगा तो यहाँ से मुंबई तक 1 घंटे में पहुँच जाऊँगा राइट सो व्हाट इज द फ्यूचर मैं भी यहाँ से यूएस जाना तो भी 1 घंटे में यूएस पहुँच जाऊँगा अगर if I want to acquire a house एक सिटी होता है वो लिमिटेशन खत्म हो जाएगा अभी इंडिया में बैठा ग्लोबल एक बिजनेस बना सकता हूँ कि मैं अपने यूरोप का reimagining कर
So for example, right? A lot of not also I think that the monopoly advantage business को कुछ innovation model उसका life cycle होगा shorter. दूसरा, amount of innovation, the level of distribution will be very high, very much more. So अभी जैसे iPhone से इतना सारा product बनता है, iPhone 16 अभी नहीं बनता, we expect क्या बात है, कुछ और ही है. What is the product type? जितना profit आर्टिफिशियल बना है, जितना मुझे 10-20 तब तक जो हमारी innovation है वो इतनी डिस्ट्रीब्यूट so good that a lot more people will have a much higher kind of innovation, not being limited to one company allowing you to do it. So a lot more companies will make a lot more money. And there is a lot less concentration which comes back to the decentralization. Things which are more effort are going to be differentiated as opposed to things which don't actively require effort to do. That's how I feel.
That's why I highlight ask questions, experience why. Even if they are sitting and having such a conversation with each other, the first thing we ask questions. Why is this happening? What is this happening? What is this and how to the question is what is the government in order to have that innovation as a
It's a community development. What is more, that is why we worry so much in terms of servers. In fact, Windows go back to and that's what we want. I think we attended Windows but some microsystems will have right, which was their servers, those servers power pure internet. When they died, right? That's what happened. A lot of people made money. Nobody made as much money as no one entity made as much money as that Keynote time. But thousands of providers they are making so much money. That's because of but because the community takes care of that asset, it's always adding up.
Waiting for that, or they are putting in their time or effort or whatever they are, right? So then that comes to the beauty point of business sustainability wise, where Alex will never know what are the revenue wise will not be able to stand next to Microsoft, unfortunately, as much as I like this well,
I would argue that the amount of money is much more than what Microsoft is doing because of Microsoft.
Most definitely. It's so agree to that point.
the one who is deploying Linux server is the one, right? But then at the end of the day, open source being null revenue.
The question is money going to be
My understanding, at the end of the day, everything has to, somebody has to pay for everything. At the end of the day, there's nothing as such as zero cost. That's just a fact. At the end something has to pay for everything. Point where it takes amount of things with null cost. Whatever beyond X would be have to the cost that is taking this purpose. Right? If you have X to the power Y and X to the power at least to bring that back to the when infinite group like that.
bring it back around is that एक price point पे जब पहुंच जा रहा है, then we are able to bring back some value of that job or to starting one of the big jobs. या तो top line में add
repetitive tasks वो सारे repetitive tasks are automated. Jobs that are going to ultimately remain, the tasks that are going to ultimately remain are going to be softer tasks that involve more emotion, that involve more sort of interaction, that involve more creativity. These are some of the things that are going to sort of
after seeing I don't know the answer. I'm not sure.
But fair enough. But say for example, Midjourney to create an image that has some equal of some words. It can't be the same as something drawn on canvas, which is
That's what
it can't render. It can't render.
think about it. ChatGPT में random function लगा रहे हैं, उसकी words निकालेगा, वो तो Midjourney में डालना।
मैं स्क्रीन की बात नहीं कर रहा, मतलब मैं स्क्रीन पे कर सकता हूँ। बट क्या मैं
प्रिंटर से कनेक्ट कर दे, people are doing it, it's a business.
बट क्या मैं ये
इतना बड़ा कैनवस में people are doing it, it's a business buddy. Online, right? It's a small business. What people are doing, बड़ा बड़ा प्रिंटर लेके A2 साइज वाले का, ठीक है? पेपर नहीं डाल रहे, कैनवस डाल रहे, और प्रिंट कर रहे Midjourney के प्रिंट्स।
वो भी तो प्रिंटेड होगा, मतलब
उससे क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
बहुत फर्क है from like somebody painting something and having bringing that value.
Maybe our some programs should also be There are points that you get for having
merit points and incentives for people. When you said that's why if he's incentivized, he will do it.
What can you do?
What I'm saying
Just like we have these startup platform will come and discuss the idea and team up with different as equal and like-minded people.
Makes sense. Why does it apply to us? Because they're also individuals. Yes.
If I say this, we was 18-year-old sustainability next week.
Also less paperwork. Because so much of paperwork, so
All right, everybody, especially to the group leaders. May I have your attention, especially to the group leaders?
Time for the
Hi.
session.
5 minutes to wind up the session, and the group leaders, will have to summarize what they have discussed about. Thank you.
One of you is ready to come up in 5 minutes? Yes, in 5 minutes. So, just please help me make sure in 5 minutes we come up. So, we expect that businesses of the future will primarily be focused on simplifying life. Cultures are going to be different. So by thinking that we have like this big fish in a small pond, you're going to be harvesting fish. There has to be a very strong and going forward for businesses, the key differentiator is going to be that connect, that they're able to create with their customers and the society. We are going to have a lot more tech and a lot more AI, which will mean higher order funding is also available for businesses at null cost. So a lot of things will, that today we pay a lot of money for, they become commodities very quickly, and more and more innovation will need to be delivered all the time. This is my final point, that the primary currency of the future is going to be
Hello everyone. Yeah, may I have your attention? So now we'll call the group leaders to give their summaries. Can you stay where you are? Let the seating, okay, too late. All right, we'll request Kalpana Jain. All right, come. Summarize. Yeah, we're having recording. Yeah, recording. And we request everybody to summarize within 2 to 3 minutes, not more than that, please.
They got scared, because I said I'll be endless. So very quickly, we had a very animated discussion in our group, and some of the thoughts that came up was that innovation and technology will be central and ubiquitous, and something which will be very well accepted, and there'll be no choice. So all businesses that we look at will necessarily have technology at their core, and it'll no longer be a very big thing. Oh wow, this is a technology oriented company. Then there was a conversation around how there will be many more businesses which are local, which do well locally, and perhaps there would be a platform which would be able to connect them to be able to gain what one can from larger setups, for example. The belief is that we will see many more manufacturing businesses, and the thought came from the fact that right now we do import a lot of components which we then assemble and put together. We will backward integrate into the value chain, and more ab initio manufacturing is expected to happen. The other side was that the primary sectors in terms of agriculture, metal, mining, etc., will also see a lot of focus in terms of innovation and technology, because these are areas which are, there is a crying need, and they, as was pointed out, 70% of our population does depend on that sector. On education, we had a long conversation and various viewpoints on education. The education system needs to evolve in sync with the need for either employability or entrepreneurial intent. So, which means that students need to be well equipped with the ability to start a business or to be more employable. Today we have zillions of graduates. One of the thought was that the graduates, and ma'am, that's to your point, the graduates that we have which basically are not really employable, perhaps, you know, so all the platforms which exist, maybe TiE to Shrikant, can offer, you know, the students can list themselves for the kind of skill sets they want to acquire, and the startups can pick them, and they can be a minus type 1, because startups are strapped for cash too. That was one of the conversations we had. Then this I've talked about. We do expect gig workers, the gig economy, to pick up, where skill sets will reign supreme rather than lifelong jobs, for example, with the same organization. We did talk about how the youth is interested in much more than just being wedded to their organizations like old-timers like us. So the need for, regulatory environment to support gig workers, so that there's no misuse, or there is less misuse on the side of the workers and the people who are going to employ the gig workers. I think regulation really needs to employ to be able to evolve to be able to support gig workers. I'm just seeing if I've got any other point. I don't know whether I'm on over there. Yeah, so parts of the gig workers could also be self-certification opportunities. So somebody should be able to go to a lab, or somebody should be able to go to a workshop, or somebody should be able to go online and say, I'm certified to serve, for example, for development. Right now it's beginning to develop a lot for software, for example, for technology, for example, but perhaps it should need to get extended in sync with the skills which are going to be required tomorrow. And last but not the least, and one of my favorite topics, is we need to create a culture of ESG, environment, social, and governance from the start. It needs to be a culture which needs to be part of every startup that is, has aspirations to operate and grow their businesses, as well as, people who are employed should have an orientation. So perhaps attempts to build the culture of being responsible to the environment, to society, and to, the letter of the law. So I guess those are the points. I hope. How many minutes did I take? 5 minutes maybe. No.
All right, Nayantara, please.
Hi everyone, I'll just quickly introduce my group members as well. Deep Bajaj, Sirona Hygiene, Anand Gujrani, India Deposit, Vibha Chaudhary, Champ Buddy, Mir Shah Ali from Expanse Aerospace, Ravi Sharma, Vidyadhara Consultancy, Sunita Mishra, Fendoro Technologies, and I'm Nayantara from Vidyadhara Consultancy. So we talked about few broad topics, starting with the startup space. So we discussed about how important it is to build a more collaborative approach while we talk about competition. And I think even in the evaluations, there are these points which come up. Of course, it's important to acknowledge the uniqueness of each startup. But when it comes to, say when we talk about what is our competitive advantage or what does the competitive space look like. So instead of startups working in silos, or more, if we have to reimagine the future, it would be kind of nurturing startups together who are trying to address problems or solutions in the same space. So then it was also discussed that certain edtech startups, I mean, there may be some like feather touch difference. But there's like so much of resources which go into developing each startup. So if there can be a more collaborative approach, we would save on resources, people would work together, and probably be able to address larger problems together. Then coming to skills and education, which all of us discussed was extremely important, right from schools, college, to when people move on to industries. Skilling, upskilling, and reskilling at every stage is extremely important. And we talked about how important it is to build industry-specific skills and have those changes in the curriculum, making them very adaptive. And while it is important to have a structure, but make it flexible and fluid as per the need of the hour. And there were also some ideas that, schools can be brought into finding, with children, working with children also to finding solutions to local problems, working with states, and to find local solutions. Then we also discussed about how important it is to have training on attitudinal aspects or soft skills training, which we do have currently, but in terms of the weightage. Because we felt that if we again have to reimagine a future, it would not only be competency in terms of the technical skills, but how is the attitude of our youth? And that is something which would make them employable, because we do see employers giving this feedback that, we will train them. Training hum kara lenge once they join, but I need to see people who are willing to learn, who are open to ideas, who can work with others. So something like that. So and that again goes to the education system, that, do we have enough weightage for evaluating those attitudinal aspects? Because that is when people would also give focus to that when it comes to training, certification, evaluation in the entire process. Then we also discussed about the general social awakening, developing an entrepreneurial mindset in people that find, and that is something again which would be ongoing. And it is also true that a lot of young people, what is the idea they have of an entrepreneur? That is it that, clarity on, who is an entrepreneur? Is it only because, you want to have your own startup, you want to have your own business, but what does it really mean to be an entrepreneur? Are you able to face challenges? Are you able to come up with new creative ideas? So it is not only because you don't want to work under somebody or you just want to have your own business, but having the perspective of what it means to be an entrepreneur, and how you can support your country, your nation, or any other problem that one is trying to solve. So that entrepreneurial mindset, again, bringing in clarity on why somebody would want to be an entrepreneur. So not just, because it sounds glamorous or because it's trendy, but what it really means. Then we also talked about future businesses. There would be an organic growth related to data, AI, sustainability will be a focus. Then reconnecting with nature, and apart from productivity, there would also be a focus on well-being. So not just on, how much work we are able to do or how much we are able to produce, but how we are doing that, the process part of it, and there's more of empathy, and there's focus on well-being in the entire process of achieving those goals. And yes, and there was one more point regarding empowering the youth, empowering women, and just going beyond, say, gender or... So there would be greater social awakening. And yes, so team, if I missed out on anything else, okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you everybody. I'm Rahul here. And thanks to all my group members. We had a very diverse and rich group. So thanks to Saurabh, Mridula, Ritu, Neha, Shubhajit, DS Rawat, Jasmine, and Paramjeet. So we covered kind of, let's say, three topics. So first is the national education policy, which I think was very close to people's heart. That, you know what, national educational policy, which is there right now, needs to be more inclusive, needs to be more progressive, needs to reach out to any and everybody which is there out there. Because these people, I mean, we're talking about 1.55 billion people in the future. If we don't treat them correctly, rather than being an asset, they'll be a liability. So that's what we need to focus upon, that make them employable at any and every stage. Focus on things like, let's say, that how can they be more emotionally intelligent, focus on the social learning aspect, and also make them employable at any and every stage. So that's one. All right, sure. And also one of the points which was discussed was that, you know what, the national educational policy needs to be in tandem with, let's say, what's happening in the current times, right? So we have technology which is changing every 6 months here and there. And there we have courses, or let's say, I mean, curriculum which are dated and everything. We have Chat GPT, which is going to be replacing, or let's say, disrupting the tech space. So how can today's, let's say, student be more employable on the go? That's what we discussed. And focus on obviously things like making the education setup more sustainable, and somewhere also focus upon the health and the environmental aspect, wherein also cover things like, let's say, communicable and non-communicable diseases, focus on mental health. So that's about it. Second topic, what we kind of focused upon was research and innovation as a way of life. So once again, very, very rich views which we got from there. So one thing which came out was that critical thinking has to be a way of life. We have to be more curious as a nation. When I say we have to be more curious, we don't have to wait for people, or let's say a senior leader, to, let's say, identify problems and solve them. We have to be the problem identifiers by ourselves and problem solvers also by ourselves, if not at a macro level, but maybe at a level wherein we can make certain difference. So be more curious and be a problem solver. And from a government level, or let's say from the leadership level, so the group clearly suggested that there has to be a national level program which fosters, let's say, focus on research and innovation. And once again, not just restricted to, let's say, institutes, or let's say some schools, or let's say an IIT or something. An innovation can happen out of anywhere. If there is a problem related to, let's say, transport or mobility, that problem can be identified by a rickshawala also, and the solution can also come from there. So we need to give voice to these people, and to give voice to these people, I mean, we have today's social media, we have support of, let's say, a lot of apps and everything. So make use of any and everything, but the voices should be heard, and make people, and probably incentivize people to share their problem, and let's say, be more innovative and provide solutions. Okay, third point, I think close to any and everybody here, which is the Startup India initiative. So the common consensus, or let's say the common feeling, was that in today's scenario, when we go to sectors like manufacturing, or let's say automotive and everything, people have a lot of interesting ideas, but to execute those ideas, there are huge entry barriers. So those entry barriers with respect to, let's say, be it rental, land, or let's say any sort of special, let's say, programs, which I'm sure are there also right now, but needs to be increased. It needs to be increased in terms of, let's say, to offer to several industries which are having heavy high entry barriers, and incentivize those people to, let's say, execute those ideas, which are once again problem solving at a macro level. Another idea which came was that more sandboxes. Today we have sandboxes with respect to, let's say, fintech, but those sandboxes need not be restricted to, let's say, fintech B2C. Those sandboxes should be, let's say, introduced for, let's say, tech, fintech in general, at B2B at any and every level, so that people who have ideas, they can execute them, make them scalable, and those ideas can then they can turn into, let's say, huge, large ventures, which can be scaled not just in India, but outside India also. And obviously reduce paperwork and everything. That was a common ask also. Yes, please. Yes, I'm coming to that. And the next point was, which was there in the last, let's say, point also, that reverse learning. So we have a lot of talent pool which is available outside India. We have a big talent pool which is sitting in form of, let's say, somebody who's retired. So making these people mentors of startups, right? So that they can also contribute. So while startups have this tendency of, let's say, going on a like extreme growth path and everything, but let's say some reverse mentoring would also help them in terms of stabilizing things. Yeah. And spread of information, and that's about it. Yeah. Did I miss anything? Yeah, please.
Youth over here, but they usually go out in different universities. What can make them stay over here and serve the country? So we need to connect them to the roots of our country, like serving in the rural areas or serving in medical situations or disaster-prone areas. That might connect them to the country and the problems that we are facing. So they can bring in the solutions. I think the connect has to be there. So yeah.
Thank you.
Harshveer, please.
Hi everyone. So I didn't write down the name of my group members, so I'm just thankful for the points over here. So the few pointers that we discussed were, many of them were regarding education. So one thing that we've seen is that recognition of students is not there when it comes to major patterns or something that's very innovative. That's very innovative. All right, I'm audible, right? So recognition of students in certain patterns, basically like in colleges, we go to basically in STEM fields. So they have certain patterns that the students, professors are the ones who are making them write the articles and everything. But they're taking the whole credit of it. So I think that students should be given credit of that too. Secondly, so when it comes to skill sets, now students have a lot of skill sets that they think that need to be enhanced. Now entrepreneurship is one thing that wasn't taught in school to anyone. That was something that people learned through experience. But I think if they taught that in schools and colleges, that would be very effective to students. Education needs to change. That's something I've already told, that there is a lot of rote learning that's being taught to students. There's no practical knowledge. We teach them what to think, but we never teach them how to think. I mean, if you've seen 3 Idiots, right? We taught them that you're all learning what's written in the book, but you're not coming with something that's very truly inventive. So we need to incentivize that also. So the quality of education needs to improve, and the number of schools. So as we discussed in the beginning that the population is expanding. So the number of schools also have to expand. Like we need more students, we need more resources when it comes to education. Now also alongside, so there are certain counselors that we have in schools that are not incentivized when it comes to schools that they want to teach or guide those students. So counselors need to be given recognition as well. I think they need to be brought into schools, help the students, decide a career path. When it comes to career paths, they eventually become better in those careers, those paths, and they tend to bring out something very big, innovative, something, big invention comes out of their minds. I mean, young students as well, I'm talking about. I'm talking about 10 graders, 11 graders as well. And so academic industries need to collab with startup industries. Like anyone who's starting a new company, anyone who has a very good brilliant mind in the mind and they want to start something new. And we have academics who have experience that they can share with those specific or new entrepreneurs. So I think collabing those two together, like bringing the startups and the university professors coming together and sharing their experience, how their experience came into those products that they're working on, they're working with those, especially in the STEM fields. I believe that if they collab them and we share that knowledge together, I think that could be something that would be a big plus point. And finally, I would say, like in the Startup India policy, I think policies need to be a little more efficient. I mean, there are a lot of exemptions, a lot of paperwork that's belonging in that. So that takes a lot of it takes a lot of time of the entrepreneurs. And I think that's it. I didn't, one point here. Yeah, so cluster-based strategy to leverage these individual advantages. So the supply chain needs to meet cost benefit. So for example, if you take manufacturing, it's very cluttered, right? It's a huge cluster.
Recently, our Prime Minister, everyone admit that India cost of supply chain is very high, 14%. It has to go to 8%. So that's where the industry will get empowered, the profit, the job, employment, everything will happen around it. So only policy maker can think the land pooling, the weather resource, like Kanpur is known for their particular industry. Madhubani is known for painting. So those kind of identification by the government and then pool creation, fund allocations, all the that right resource deployment, whatever makes them cluster based incentive, whatever today startup is getting popularized based on their incentive. Few minutes talk there was based on acid. So government has made some incentive of PLI, non-industry is thriving. So if the government start and just make the cluster that which zone of the India has the what they are best to sell, that's will solve the entire problem. Thank you.
Hi everyone. These points are brought to you by Bharat, Ravi, Abhinandan, Prateek, Abhineet, Sanjay and me. We are the backbenchers. The first thing that we realized with respect when we started doing this discussion was that technology has complicated our lives a lot. And whatever the businesses of the future do, the fun thing that they absolutely must do is simplify lives, right? So, and not just simplify it in the sense that my life is simpler, but simplify it meaningfully for the owner of the business, for the society, and for the customer. So, it has to be, the focus of every business has to be the triple bottom line. There has to be a lot of focus on the circular economy because we are living in a very, I would say last century sort of a supply chain, take out products, forget what happens to them. But the only way forward is when we work in a circular economy, we make sure things are recycled, and we make sure that the fruits reach everybody. This is very, we think that businesses will be a lot more community driven, and they'll work in the spirit of the cooperatives or the NGOs, right? And these will be a lot more local. We feel that there'll be a decentralization in most aspects and most functions of business. To the point that every individual will be empowered to contribute to the society in the way they feel or they can in the best way. On the other side, big businesses, large businesses will only be global, right? Their customers will be global, their products will be global, they'll be catering to people with different languages, different cultures, distributions will be global, right? So you'll either have global businesses, really large global businesses, or you'll have these local cooperative type run, NGO type run small businesses. There's going to be a lot more focus on sustainability. And for all these businesses, emotional connect, going back to the roots, that's going to be the key differentiator, right? For the consumers and for the society at large. Of course, we're entering an era of more tech, more AI, and interestingly, this will mean higher order plumbing will be available for businesses than what is available today, which means that stuff that we struggle with today, the 1,000 forms that we have to fill, right? Hopefully, ChatGPT ka koi version will fill all those forms for us in the future, right? A lot of those things will be available to us at null cost. So, things for which the marginal cost is going to be zero, all of those things will become commodities faster. And one feels that they'll probably be taken over by a lot of these NGO type, not-for-profit setups. And the businesses will focus more on dramatic value addition, crazy innovation, and that's how things will work. Finally, we feel that attention will be treated as the primary currency as opposed to anything else. Thank you.
So these were great summary recommendations captured on record as well. Thank you everyone for this. We'll take a 10-minute break for tea and then regroup for the second topic, which is about a sustainable lifestyle. And equally important to look forward to your recommendation there. So we'll be back in 10 minutes. It's 4:35. So whether you take the anti-firecracker movement or Greta Thunberg, I think clearly youth has led the way. And I see this, by the way, in all the startup incubators that I'm engaged with or the colleges I teach. Environment, sustainability, climate change is top of mind for youth. And the good news is that we're going back to our roots. Our culture has always spoken about being one with nature. Somewhere we lost our way. Fortunately, the government is now doing so many different things to bring the focus back. So the question is, what more can be done by us as a country or by the government or by youth? That's the next topic. We can get into our same circles and spend maybe how much, 25 minutes to brainstorm ideas and come back with a spokesperson talking about it. Back to your groups. 40 minutes? Okay, 40 minutes. Payal has just said she's given you bonus 15 minutes.
I'm so sorry, it's 30 minutes. I've been ordered by my boss, it's 30 minutes.
The way our school is is the fundamental way that we are doing business. Make device of product focus and discard device of product. Right? That is the current way of doing it. That is how the is. And let's start with something at the end
कुछ गाइडलाइन हो सकती है स्टैंडर्ड्स हो सकते हैं
जो पहले बेस निकल रहा था वो कम हो गया हमारा बेस निकल रहा था सबसे मेजर रीजन ही यही है डेलिवरी प्रोडक्ट को ऐसा बनाती है 3 साल बाद दोबारा खरीदो जाके
फॉर्म फैक्टर और सेफ्टी जो है पहले बहुत ज़्यादा
अगर मैं बात करूँ जब पहले मेरे पास नहीं कैपेबिलिटी थी मैं ऐसा प्रोडक्ट बनाता था जो 20 साल का था अब तो मेरे पास ऐसा प्रोडक्ट है मैं 50 साल चला सकता हूँ तो क्यों नहीं बना रही
अगर वो बार-बार
गवर्नमेंट रेगुलेटरी थी
you will very quickly become more competitive with the rest of the world. भाई अगर सिर्फ आपकी सरकार बोलती है कि आप एक चाय सिस्टम अप्लाई करो और कोई और सरकार नहीं बोलती है अप्लाई करने के लिए तो बाकी सारे लोग
ग्लोबल इनिशिएटिव क्योंकि देखो अर्थ को अगर अफेक्ट कर रहा है कोई चीज तो भाई हर इंसान को अफेक्ट कर रहा है
बिजनेस वाला है ठीक है आप ये एक बार गोदरेज से फ्रेंड ले जाओ 20 साल तक कुछ नहीं दिया तो 20 साल के लिए आपका गोदरेज को बिजनेस जीरो है यू आर नॉट अ कस्टमर टू इट्स जस्ट अ रिकॉर्डिंग
आपकी कंपनी और वैल्यूएबल हो रही है कंसिडरिंग कि आपकी सरकार ने ये रेगुलेशन डाली है आपके इन प्रोडक्ट्स के ऊपर the world knows about this. So that particular
there is a market over. Like for example, electronics is that people have a certain amount of money that they allocate subconsciously to a certain thing. So for example, let's say मैं तो बोलूँ 1 लाख रुपए का फ्रिज ले जिंदगी भर चलेगा. फिर दिमाग में 20 साल की सोची नहीं
Right, मेरा challenge फिर ये होगा ना उनको $20 में एक ऐसा फ्रिज बनाना है which is what अगर हम regulations लग रहे हैं तो उनका the price of goods for that industry reduces.
But if you bring standardization, then what happens is आप किसी का भी टायर किसी में भी लगा सकते हो.
That I think is very well.
Standardization,
correct, right, and standard components.
Right.
Absolutely.
Number one. Right. Reduce this किसी भी टाइप का.
Jैसे there should be a percentage of spend that every company will shell out for climate management, etc. Which has to be based on the index. ये industry इतना pollute करती है, इसको इतना पैसा लगाना पड़ेगा. ESG तो UN का है ना.
ये ग्लोबली उन्होंने दिया है मैंडेट
UN का है.
SDG
अच्छा SDG. So basically industry जो है वो इंडस्ट्री उनको पैरामीटर में कितना पोल्यूट करती है क्या कैसे करती है उसके हिसाब से उसका इतना परसेंट ऑफ टॉप लाइन should be spent fixing the clients.
That is allowing allocating certain amount of funds. Yes, and that will fund will then fuel some sort of.
Exactly what you said. Second, the industry as a whole will be incentivized to reduce the impact of climate so that उसका जो वो index में उसका जितना पैसा उसे percentage of top line वो काम करना है. So दोनों तरफ से होता है. वो दोनों तरफ से होता है.
जो भी इंडस्ट्री community or जो भी residential commercial projects the idea of development needs to change. The idea of development in a sort of developing country is to have big buildings with glass walls and glass things. इसके चक्कर air conditioning cost होता है
अच्छा लगता है यहाँ भी अच्छा लगता
local ecology को consider करके construction manufacturing उस local ecology को cater करते हुए अगर वो ecology
mode of happiness. So we should आपके लिए भूटान एक country है.
Gross happiness index.
Gross happiness index में सबसे ऊपर है. इसमें monetary नहीं कर पाए. इसको decide करना है कि monetary देखना है या happiness देखना है. Standard of living, quality of life देखना है.
ये बहुत बड़ा इशू है.
ये
Bhutan why is Bhutan able to work on gross happiness index? Because they don't have to worry about security ना, वो तो इंडिया वाले देंगे. तो अगर आप ये बोलो कि सारी कंट्रियाँ खुशी में और एक चीज़ें करेंगे, nobody works on इकोनॉमी का फायदा है, पैसे से होता है. पैसा is a proxy for resource. पैसा is a proxy for resource. जिसके पास जितना रिसोर्स होगा, वो उतना बढ़िया होगा. Why was selection ultimately the producers were able to get more resources in their favor, and therefore they were happy. अगर आप ये बोलते हैं कि भैया हम पैसा बनाने के लिए हम ये बाकी चीज़ें करेंगे, वो कभी नहीं चलेगा. अब हर दो company will take over, pivot. Yeah, there will always be people who will corner resources and who will try to take over any large resources. You not have to either you eradicate them or you realize that you can never eradicate them. So you say यार इतना हम बाहर रखना पड़ेगा.
Eradicating them. Also है.
यहाँ पर यार
Basically, technology transfer is India में
आपने खुद का अपना रोड इतना माना है तो उसको भाई उसको जितना उसकी रोड करने की कैपेसिटी उसे 10x रोड करना पड़ेगा to have a meaningful impact in the world. Which is how the world is right now, right? Which is nuclear, which is what nuclear determines the world. So who should have the 10x? 10x ideally it should have 10x. So if a country is 10 times bigger, it has to. By definition, सारी countries same size की नहीं होंगी. Same resources की restrictions होते हैं ना. You can count on the population. यार अब आप मुझे बताओ. Which country is richer right now? Right? Saudi Arabia or Pakistan?
Saudi Arabia.
क्यों? ज़्यादा लोग हैं.
ज़्यादा लोग हैं इसलिए नहीं.
Resources ज़्यादा हैं.
Now compared to Saudi Arabia, Pakistan has a more population. If we think that ideal situation, each individual has the same equality income. That Pakistan has a more income than Saudi Arabia. In that case, right? We should move towards that.
It will never happen.
It will never happen.
Why will it never happen?
Equilibrium should not be.
Equilibrium is created by equality of resources.
Identify the ideal situation क्या होगा?
Equilibrium का definition है equality of resources. Money is a proxy for the resource. Money is not a resource. पैसा खा नहीं सकते. पैसा यूजर चीज़ है. जलाओगे 10 मिनट गर्मी लगेगा कुछ नहीं कर सकता. So आप money को सोचो as a proxy of resource. इस पैसे से मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ?
इतना एम्पावर कर दिया है कि अब वो इस पोजीशन पे है कि हम को लगता है कि ऐसा सब कुछ कर सकते हैं. हमारा माइंड से ये है.
अगर इस लाइन को छोटा करना है ना तो इस लाइन को छोटा करने के लिए या तो आप इसको मिटा सकते हो या इसको लंबी लाइन खींच सकते हो. That's all. What he is talking about is कि इससे लंबी लाइन एंड ऑफ स्टोरी ये लाइन अपने आप छोटी होगी. That's how nuclear deterrence works. Make something bigger in the system. Something bigger, but you can't change human nature. You just can't change.
जैसे पाकिस्तान ने किया है, बर्मा ने किया है, भूटान ने किया है, सिस्टम का है वहाँ पे छोटे के
यार आप किस की बात कर रहे हो? आप हर उस कंट्री की बात कर रहे हो जिसमें डिफेंस उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है.
डिफेंस तो ठीक है ना,
डिफेंस इज द नंबर वन
एस्पेक्ट.
यार चाणक्य क्या बोलता है? एक्जिस्टेंस ऑफ अ कंट्री
आपको भी लगता है
वजूद एक कंट्री का उसके डिफेंस
इंडिया का इंडिया को जैसे पॉलिटिकली डर है हमको है We are sitting in Delhi and we are coming to right on structure which is
Why do you think that is the case? Because we were able to ignorance is not an experiment. Ignorance is not an experiment.
trust India. Trust Indian government.
बोल सकते हैं कि जो चीज जिस रीजन से मैं आपको ट्रस्ट करता हूँ वो करना
आप थोड़ा सा रिफर कर रहे हैं अपने बोर्ड डिस्कशन के लिए तो आई थिंक वी शुड लीव इट एंड लेट्स ट्राई टू फिगर आउट व्हाट द टॉपिक तो what are other points that you think can be brought on आपने अभी तक क्या क्या लिखा है
First was electronic components recycling of electronics, then bringing a standardization and EPR percentage of top line right to be assigned for CSR accountability. As in, during EPR guidelines,
don't say CSR. Because CSR is very holistic. Specifically a person. So, percentage of top line, right, has to be allocated climate change. Climate change mitigation. And that is dependent on the nature of the industry and how polluting it is. So chemical manufacturing right cycle उसको 2% दे दो
किस रिसोर्स को सबसे ज़्यादा डिप्लीट कर रहे हैं या फिर सबसे ज़्यादा पोल्यूट कर रहे हैं तो उसका रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी करेक्ट
so they need to give it net neutral at least if not possible.
Sustainable energy, first of all, solar, whatever, but whenever you traveling, we already have that, we are not innovating that, but promoting that is the whole innovation but if you see for
sustainable bioenergy to be successful is private grid storage, private grid state storage. Something like that. But there are a lot of technologies. But private, right? It's very licensed lifestyle.
केपेक्स बहुत अगर मैं तेरे को बोलूँगी तो ट्रांसफॉर्मर
छोटा ट्रांसफॉर्मर तो मिला वो कोई बड़ी बात नहीं मेरे घर में 10 ट्रांसफॉर्मर होंगे छोटे ठीक है the point is if there are people who are spending 10 million 20 million trying to show us better ads I'm sure somebody can spend 50 million trying to make sure
टाटा है ना डिस्काउंट तो
वही चक्कर है why I don't
People so why did the distribution like distribution last year same this
distribution you need energy loss जो है this phenomenon is powering Bangladesh for 6 years.
आपके बिल से पता चल जाएगा
It can power distribution.
if you say ऐसे करना बोल रहा हूँ 4 it's because your base effect is not accounted. If you account for your base effect, the amount of overall acceleration in India is so much higher. हमारा जो whereas in general in any country, the any other country, half to 2%. तो हमारे 5% ट्रांसफर हो जाता है
40% हमारे डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन 40%. 40%. मैंने 5 साल काम किया डिस्काउंट हमारे डिस्काउंट्स के साथ मल्टीपल डिस्काउंट्स आंध्रा डिस्काउंट ट्रांसमिशन लॉसेस की बात कर रहे हैं there are losses on multiple levels 7% तो मतलब यूएस का स्टैंडर्ड है स्विट्जरलैंड का स्टैंडर्ड है 20% तेरा वायर नहीं जाता
वही जाता हो भी जाता
नहीं भाई वोल्टेज ड्रॉप नहीं जाएगा भाई 10% नहीं जाता
स्टेप अप ट्रांसफॉर्मर 10% थोड़ी होता है यार 10% तो ऊपर जाएगा
वैक्यूम थोड़ी होगा अंदर आयरन कोर होती है इधर सेट अप
बढ़ेगा कम होएगा
आयरन से कम आयरन
again, over here, decentralization massive.
Exactly. Decentralization very
We have 5 minutes to find
Just like sitting and smiling. Bro, why are you here? I have just to
So I'm going to call the group members from each group. So with this time, we're going to start with Mayank. Okay, role reversed. What's your name? Pratik.
So we're doing it in reverse, backbenchers pehle bol rahe hain. That's new. So my name is Pratik. Mayank is from our team. This time I'm the one who's talking about this because sustainability se thoda lena dena zyada hai mera. That's about it. So in the particular team. So from a sustainability standpoint, we came up with 5 major parameters that we want to work on or that we can highlight, right? One being recycling. Everyone knows that sustainability is connected with recycling. Recycling ke case mein, the one challenge that we have here is infrastructure. Infrastructure ko build hone mein, it will take years or decades or whatever, right? And in the meantime, to do that is very expensive for any small business. So the solution to that we think of is that government can promote a cluster of recycling, right? A particular area which is like a special economic zone, wherein they provide the infrastructure to startups, to smaller companies who can access that to create, do R&D on recycling for whatever material it be it metal, be it electronics, be it fabric, whatever. Such areas can definitely promote startups and the whole culture to do more about recycling. That's one. Second, being standardization. So in terms of e-waste or in terms of automotive waste metal, most of it is because of IP. IP that I am creating this type of phone connector, this type of phone charger. We have some sort of standardization coming in from the UN, that is Type-C ports only and stuff like that, which is just rudimentary, but there can be much more on that. There is a lot that, especially in electronics industry, that we can do away with. Absolutely, we can do away with, right? Another point is modular manufacturing, especially for any product that is that is a physical hard product. Modular manufacturing that allows you to repair or increase the longevity of that particular product much further. Changeable batteries, for example, be it for a car, be it for an EV, be it for a mobile phone, whatever. So that makes it easier. The fourth part was more related to the COVID disaster. We took that from the COVID disaster, that why did it spread so fast and so wide? It was because the whole world's, all the eggs were in one basket. So creating a decentralized manufacturing is also a sustainable way to go about it, instead of if I have to eat that packet of Haldiram that is coming from 1500 kilometers away through a truck to my house, why not have it manufactured 50 kilometers away instead of 1500 kilometers away, and do away with the logistics of it and the pollution of it, and increase the business of that local business owner, whoever is manufacturing it in that case, right? Um, One point that I liked very much is that a percentage of top line of large businesses who are using any amount, whatever resource. For example, a tire manufacturing company is using a lot of rubber. So uh, a percentage of top line can be assigned that they have to replenish that same resource. A percentage can be used that they have to use that money to grow that many rubber trees. Forget it. This is what you're using. This is what you replenish. End of story. Right. These were pretty much the ideas. The one whole holistic approach being that we reimagine the definition of the word development. You know, the whole word of development. Not going by what the West has told us. That development means high-rise buildings, development means fancy cars, development means that we can open a champagne bottle whenever we want. That's not necessarily development. Development also means that India में जो हम, and I know this for sure, India में जो आपको किसी भी उसके पास जाइए आप पानीपुरी वाले के पास में वो आपको पत्तल देता है, right? वो normal पत्ते का बना होता है. Germany में there is a company which is selling that for, I guess, in INR, $1,000 a plate, right? और हमारे यहाँ without pani puri, just the plate, not even pani puri in it, right? Just the plate, okay? And we have been doing that for 4,000 years without requiring any technology. मतलब ये तो गीता में भी है. I'm pretty sure उतने पहले में भी पत्ते पे ही खा रहे थे लोग. So nature-wise, culturally, we are more sustainable than the West. Let's not copy the West and make ourselves unsustainable. Let's just stay to our roots and we will be able to do much better in sustainability. That's what I think.
Hi again, everyone. So, I'll start with the first point, which is very obvious, the crop burning that's affecting us Delhites a lot. I mean, we're seeing the pollution that we're getting from the crop burning from Haryana and Punjab. It's affecting our environment heavily. I mean, मेरे को तो बहुत time हो गया रात को तारे देखे हुए because of the pollution. It's horrible. Secondly, I would come with is that, so what we can do is that the waste of crops can be taken to Ladakh, so that those wasted crops can be used for warming up those buildings that are used already. Maybe I need to elaborate this a little bit better. I'll come back to this later. Another thing that can be done is that small acre farms can use small tractors. They use large tractors, they exert a lot of energy. So that's again causing a lot of pollution. In agriculture, horticulture is quite heavily neglected. So horticulture is basically growing fruits and vegetables, not just the basic crops, not just barley, not just wheat, not just millets. It's growing other crops as well. So we can use that as a substitute for better agriculture. Another thing that is horribly neglected is that the carbon footprint is not just, it's majorly vehicles, not denying that. But there's another carbon footprint that is the homelessness in India right now. The slums that are causing a lot of problems, specifically when it comes to deficiencies. It's high. It's quite high. And the slums are not at all properly managed, they're not properly regulated. The slums are just wandering around freely. So the government has to do something to make those infrastructures, to make those systems a little, they need to be made more, organized in some sort of way. So, well, let's take an example of Sweden right now. So Sweden is a country that buys waste from its neighboring countries. It's either Sweden or it's some Scandinavian country, I'm forgetting which one. So they started it with waste segregation in the localities. They made it legal they made a law that every single household has to have a waste segregation that should be definite when it comes to plastic and your basic food waste. So that started, and Sweden has come to a brink that they have to buy waste so that they can start recycling further. So that is something that I think India has a capacity of doing, like they have the capability of doing that. So as it was already discussed, that development is also causing our ecosystem horribly, like the development definition needs to be, I think, changed. And when it comes to water, water emission, I think the water table in India is dropping dramatically. For that, what we can do is that water allocation can be done better. Like the water allocation can be done in a very streamlined way to the people in India. It's either using for, I mean, you've seen the situation in Ganga Yamuna, it's horrible right now, right? So if that is, I think that's one of the major steps that could be taken into cleanliness. Now, again, when it comes to air pollution, water pollution is caused. That's basic science that you learn in 6th grade, 5th or 4th grade, whatever. So if we drop down the air pollution, the water pollution would dramatically drop down. Now, if we take Bhopal as an example, Bhopal is one of the cleanest cities in India, right? Why is that not being used as an example for the rest of the cities in India? Like Bhopal and Indore both are quite, I mean, Madhya Pradesh itself is quite a clean state. Indore, right? So Indore. So Indore is one of the cleanest states in India. Cities in India. So why is that example not being used for the rest of the cities in India? And one thing is that, okay, so I'll come back to the point when it was, one second. So yeah, when it came to waste segregation, private societies, I think, should be implementing that. The example I took for Sweden. So I think that is something that's very important. The waste segregation, when it comes to waste management, we're losing horribly. We don't know where the waste is going. And if it's going somewhere, why is it not being reused as a resource for something else? You know, it's sort of like alchemy for the waste. Okay, I think those are all the points that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I request Rahul Singh, please?
We have a different group leader this time.
Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mridula, and I'll be reflecting the points discussed in my group. So I think climate change and disaster risk reduction is the need of the hour, and I don't think that it is a rocket science to make it sustainable and a way of life. And I would like to start with one single word, that is prioritization. So let's say I prioritize this mobile instead of writing it on a paper, the points that I had to reflect. This is called very simple, basic steps, but it can have a huge impact. Now coming to the points from my group, first is the sustainability is always considered as a different group. Why not have an interplay? Why not have an integration with all the departments? Let's come and sit together just like we are doing it at TiE. That, okay, one person from sustainability department from, in each group is there. So that is something that we need to focus upon. That is the first point. And as my friend said, strategy is the toolkit, sustainability is the mindset. So it has to come in every single person's mind. It is not like, the organization's thing. You have to own it. Ownership is what we need at the forefront. Second point is socio-ecological model that we need to follow. So like from the previous point, from individual to the community to the organization, every single person's voice needs to be considered when we are talking about climate change and disaster risk reduction. I'm actually a public health professional, so I'm very passionate about this whole thing. Third is, ABCs are not taught easily. I mean, I might not be able to define what is carbon footprint or carbon credit, but I have heard about it, but I don't know, and I am a well-educated person. So how do we make it clear to a lay person? How do we bring it in our own local language? We're not comfortable when we are talking about anything in English. We'll use our local language, our mother tongue. That's what we need to focus upon. Next point is, concept of smart cities need to be shared in a very simple way. And so that even a layperson understands, and built environment needs to be inclusive and more understandable to each and everyone. So this again, I've used like really huge words. Many people might not know what is built environment. Anything physical, anything materialistic around you, around your neighbor, around your community is built environment. And we need to make it inclusive. What if a person is living with a disability and they cannot climb up the stairs? They should have an elevator or something that can take that person to their desired place. Next is Make in India. So raw materials to be manufactured over here. We're talking about solar power. My husband works in that sector and he talks about it all. And I know, these being imported from different other countries, some are our enemies also. So how do we make it in India? How do we manufacture it over here is very important. And government promotes solar energy and renewable energy, but when it comes to the raw materials, we are importing it from other countries, like I said. So we need to create local hubs, and more budget has to be allocated over here. Also, a very good example is EV vehicles are there, but the charging ports aren't. So much of paperwork and regulations are not clear around it. So we want to be like really sustainable, we want to buy an EV car and all. But what about the charging point? Where do I go when I have to charge? What if I'm left out in the highway and I don't know where to go? So that is where we need to focus upon, the pinch point. Yeah. Next is also focusing upon public transports, pooling, and also its regular maintenance. Bus hai, अपनी metro है, उसकी maintenance भी तो चाहिए, regular maintenance, and monitoring and evaluation of that is very necessary. Then is the easy and accessible platform to highlight key recommendations from the people. So we should be able to access the government, and like we are discussing it over here, we should be able to bring out our voices. Next is carbon credit auditing and government regulations with incentives around reducing the carbon footprint is to be focused upon. Seventh is, how can government incentivize startups to work around reducing carbon footprint? So if we can have some incentive model around the startups working in this sector. Next is logistics and transportation to be treated as separate department for hilly regions with innovations and tech support. Water saving credits or taxes on excessive water consumption should be given. So like insights, if we get the insights that okay, in like compared to last year, I have consumed less water in this present year. So this gives me, a point that okay, maybe because I closed my tap while going out, I did this, and because of that, my water bill is less. So we need to actually give the insights to the household. Next is, food wastage and simple monitoring and evaluation skills at the household level. So we all have this thing in our households that we want to eat so many things and then we waste it, and we don't even donate it, we don't want to go out. So we want to focus upon how much do we want, how much my family requires. Then using the basic skills and imparting the knowledge through stories, at the bedtime stories, at the school level, and within the family. So just the climate change related stories can be there at the bedtime also, when you are actually telling it to your kid. Or in fact, you might also learn so many things from these simple stories. So storytelling is also a very good way to impart the knowledge. Then the recycling and upcycling the clothes and materials in the household. removing the stigma around recycling and upcycling items, because many people say, that, oh no, this has been recycled, I don't know who might have used it, but they don't know that it goes through a very good sanitation process and then it comes to the market. There are regulations. So we need to put up that thing also, just like we say, this is healthy food and this is not. Just like that, when we recycle or do something like that, just bring that up. And yeah, talking about risk reduction, so only thing I would like to say is to be prepared for the worst, to train the youth and to have resources and relief team trained regularly, and of course including the health when we talk about wealth. And my very last point is starting it from our homes. So segregating the waste and to remember that जो कूड़ा उठा रहे हैं वो जो है आपके कूड़े वाले नहीं हैं, कूड़े वाले वो तो सफाई वाले हैं एक्चुअली, हम हैं कूड़े वाले तो क्योंकि वो कूड़ा तो हम फैला रहे हैं, हम कर रहे हैं, और वो है जो आके हमारा सारा सामान उठा रहे हैं. तो आई थिंक language matters a lot and we need to focus upon that very carefully कि अरे वो कूड़े वाले भैया आए हैं उन्हें पैसे देने हैं, अरे उनको कूड़ा देना है. No, we have to focus that वो सफाई वाले या कोई भी आप जो appropriate language you think can be done. So I think that will be the point. Thank you so much.
I'll try to match up to her now because she set the bar really high. Well, this is Vibha Chaudhary, founder of Champadi, and as a group, we want to tell you all that आप सब वेब टेक कंपनीज हैं, टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज हैं, आपने कॉन्सेप्ट सुना होगा ERP, एंटरप्राइज रिसोर्स प्लानिंग. ये एंटरप्राइज रिसोर्स प्लानिंग सिर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी में सॉफ्टवेयर बनाने के काम नहीं आता है किसी बड़ी कॉर्पोरेट के रिसोर्सेज को ऑप्टिमली यूज करने के लिए, परंतु जैसे लास्ट टाइम कहा गया एक हाउस होल्ड से स्टार्ट करना चाहिए, सिर्फ बड़े कॉर्पोरेट तक नहीं, MSME, SME और एम्प्लॉयज को भी अपने बॉसेस के रिसोर्सेज तक को बेस्ट यूटिलाइजेशन से लेकर मिनिमल वेस्टेज तक के साइकिल को कवर करने के बारे में अवेयर या कॉन्शियस या अवेकन होना चाहिए. So what I'm saying is that macro level, corporate level पे या policy making level पे नहीं, आपके household, MSME, SME, employee level पे aware और conscious होना चाहिए. Well, it starts from your kitchen, as simple as that. You don't need a lab to certify this. It starts from your kitchen. सेकंड ये है कि पर यूनिट फोकस होना चाहिए और क्लस्टर बेस्ड विजिलेंट, कम्युनिटी बेस्ड और क्लस्टर बेस्ड विजिलेंट होना चाहिए अबाउट थिंग्स लाइक क्लाइमेट चेंज, वेस्टेज, रॉन्ग पॉलिसीज एक्सेट्रा. होता क्या है, बड़े बड़े UNDP और बड़े बड़े फोरम्स पे बड़ी बड़ी पॉलिसीज बन जाती है, बट दे डोंट पर्कुलेट डाउन टू द लोअर एंड ऑफ द पिरामिड. और उसको करेक्ट करने के लिए हमारे पास एक ही रास्ता है कि कम्युनिटी, लेट्स से इन अ रेडियस ऑफ 50 किलोमीटर्स, आइडेंटिफाई करें कि उनके इंट्रिंसिक कंसर्न्स क्या है और उन इंट्रिंसिक कंसर्न्स को वो टाइम टू टाइम ऑडिट करें. प्रोसेस ऑडिट्स होने चाहिए ना सिर्फ बड़ी कॉर्पोरेट्स पे, MSMEs और SMEs और लोकल सेटअप्स पे भी, कि वो टाइम टू टाइम अपनी फाइलिंग्स ठीक से कर रहे हैं, उनके एनर्जी यूटिलाइजेशन लेवल्स, वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम्स ठीक है या नहीं, वगैरह वगैरह. तो प्रोसेस ऑडिट्स एट अ माइक्रो लेवल आर वेरी वेरी टू गो. थर्ड बात ये है कि मॉडर्नाइजेशन इज़ नॉट सिनोनिमस टू अर्बनाइजेशन. आप मॉडर्न टाइम्स में आ गए हैं, बट सेटिंग अप 4 बिल्डिंग्स और उसके बाद 5th फ्लोर को लीगलाइज कर देना इज़ नॉट द आंसर टू ह्यूमन सेटलमेंट प्रॉब्लम्स. ओके, इस जंगल अप्रोच में ग्रीन ड्राइव की बहुत ज़रूरत है. आई थिंक माई फ्रेंड मीर और रवि वॉज टेलिंग मी दैट उत्तराखंड में आई थिंक क्रैक्स डेवलप हो रहे थे एंड सर्टन पीपल हैड टू बी मूव फ्रॉम देयर होटल्स विच वर फ्लरिशिंग बिजनेसेस इन द रीसेंट पास्ट. इट वॉज टेलीकास्टेड ऑन द TV channels just yesterday night or something. तो क्लाइमेट चेंज जो है वो इंट्रिंसिक लेवल पे कम्युनिटी की ग्रोथ का आंसर है. मॉडर्नाइजेशन तो एक फ्लिम्जी टर्म है. आपको देखना चाहिए एज अ कम्युनिटी आप कलेक्टिवली किस चीज़ को एक्सेप्ट या रिजेक्ट करते हैं. फिर नेक्स्ट बात जो हमने बात की, और आई वुड लाइक टू रीइंफोर्स रोबस्ट सिविक मशीनरी, अगेन रीइंफोर्सिंग ऑन द पॉइंट ऑफ लोकल विजिलेंटे. Then I think Ravi came up with a beautiful 2 points which were about exodus, which is, see, पहले क्या हो रहा था, we were going outside for the greener pastures. अब reverse movement है. Why talk outside of the home? My own sister, when she went to US, she didn't go to New York or San Diego or California somewhere initially to find the top job. They were both offered top jobs in Apple and so many other top blue chip companies. They didn't take them up. They said, we want to be in Arizona, Phoenix initially, because we want to enjoy the work-life balance, take care of our child's growth, and then manage our careers. So that's the kind of conscious, thought processes which have crept in our mindsets, and the new India is thinking. So that's the wonderful thing, which will curb a lot of discrepancies on all these 3 fronts. Then smart cities, of course, are the one thing, and focus on renewable energies, ancient wisdom like yoga, Ayurveda, less use of chlorofluorocarbons like in our deodorants, in our refrigerators, ACs, etc., lowering the carbon footprint, incentivizing the usage of ecology-friendly measures, and lowering the carbon footprint, like by way of tax exemptions or subsidies, or setting up special economic zones to the effect our answer. Then I think we also had a wonderful point कि air, soil और water की measurement में macro level पे, जैसे आप air का particle density measure कर सकते हैं, macro level पे measures हैं, पर एक confinement of 50 kilometers, intrinsic confinement में local topography या local terrain में क्या measurement yardstick है to measure air, water, soil, and continuously keep auditing and reporting it to the higher systems, so that, God forbid, if any disaster strikes back, our predictive tools are not only prepared. See, contingencies like typhoon, तूफान या क्या कहते हैं लो वाटर लेवल डिप्लीशन या बाढ़ वगैरह जो है वो एक दिन का रिजल्ट नहीं है. दे आर द रिजल्ट्स ऑफ सस्टेन्ड मैल एक्टिविटीज दैट हैव बीन प्रिवेलिंग. सो वी हैव टू एंश्योर दैट वी tap the problem at the incidence and not 5 years down the line. Then me said that why now is the right time to probably start the curbing of the problem and coming up solutions that create a paradise back on this planet, not just Kashmir, but the whole of the country, and collectively the entire planet. We have to start now. And I would like to, just a minute. So there should be more collaborative podiums within the countries, and CNG emissions, ozone layer, etc. should be constantly administered, and awareness should be spread in the local community. And I would like to summarize now by saying like other groups have reinforced that traditional methods of cooking, existence, simple living, and lower usage of chlorofluorocarbons and other things which damage the environment start at our per unit individual level or home, like ma'am just also said. It's time to implement them now. Thank you. I don't see Kalpana Jain, so one of you, yeah.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Ekanto, and we didn't introduce our team in the first run. So that's Mr. Pankaj, Mr. Manoj, Anand Swaroop, Gaurav, and Neeraj. And I myself am Ekanto and Kalpana in absentia. So we have punished her by calling ourselves Men Pack. We have used the acronym for each of us. That's how Men Pack. So yes, the couple of points which we brainstormed on were first, because we are talking about youth in the country and sustainability and disaster risk reduction, we felt that education and awareness for the youth is a cornerstone for this entire initiative. We need to inculcate a curriculum. Can we have in the national education policy a way to incorporate a sustainable mindset for the upcoming youth, because they are going to be the future of the country and the globe. And with awareness through this initiative, we'll be able to not just bring change in the schools, but in the families across the country. And that's where, because kids usually we have seen take in the good habits and can have a reverse education of sorts in the home, wherein the kids tell their parents, can we switch off the light? And that's what we intend to have. The next point for us was technology can play a great role in this particular topic, wherein can we have more greener power, greener technology being pushed by the government initiatives? Can we have the resources, for example, the low quality lignite or coal which we have in India, can we have technologies which can cause them to be less polluting, so that the financial burden on the country is reduced, so that we don't have to export high quality coal from Australia or other places of the globe. So that's another way, and also to have alternate energy sources. For example, the green hydrogen technology which is being pushed by the government in a big way. Also, another way technology can help us is, can we have better and efficient energy audits? Can we have an encompassing of this audit by including water audits, air audits for individual cities, districts, so that there can be a competitive spirit being generated between the various habitations across the country. Sorry, Kalpana's handwriting at times causing me to look over it. We also wanted, so we understand that most of the corporations, the larger corporations, are the ones which cause more pollution rather than the smaller startups. But can the startups be of much more innovative use for these corporations, wherein the technologies being generated by these startups be more greener, which these bigger corporations adopt, right? So that's something which we feel can happen, adoption of technology from the startups by the bigger corporations. Third point which we discussed is we need to have a cultural mindset change. We discussed that there needs to be a 360-degree approach for that. It cannot just happen at the school or at the government level. It has to happen even within the families. And for that, we also believe that we have seen across the globe a Japanese family, they know that when there is a tremor, they have to all hide under the table. Or for example, if there is a missile siren in Israel, everybody knows they have to get into the shelter. So can we have that in India too, a mindset of being more aware sustainably? So here I am going to broach into a little disruptive or rather scary situation of sorts. I know in a democracy the term emergency is a little scary, but let's understand this, that unless and until we get more aware in a greener way, the nature is going to impose a climate emergency on us. So let's market it, brand it in a way for the citizens so that they get more, I wouldn't say they should be scared about the situation. They should be knowing that we are relying on the, or rather we are banking on the future generations of sorts. We are using their resources. So that's something we also discussed. And the fifth point for us was, can we have in the next summers, upcoming summers, more sustainable tourism coming into play by having more replicated Shimlas and Manalis of sorts, so that we don't have a crowded Shimla, a crowded Manali, and wherein the government needs to push more development in the underdeveloped areas so that we can prevent something what is happening in Joshimath. Can we have more development of satellite centers so that there is equitable distribution of population across the cities, and that will automatically cut down on the pollution levels, and we can achieve a more sustainable development of sorts. With that, I am Ikanto signing off.
This point is to TiE and to media partners, nothing else. We're talking about sustainability, right? Just look at the room right now. Look at the room in the session one and look at the room right now. Okay? So when we're talking about sustainability, let's not make, we need to have a way to talk about it without it being boring, without it being the room half empty, you know, without it being, somebody mentioned that it's considered taboo, or it's considered kind of, that it's recycled, so kuch, you know, low material hoga, something like that. So, which is where I personally feel that, which is where it's media. Media is the strongest powerhouse in that case. If media says Shah Rukh Khan acha hai, to sabko lagta hai Shah Rukh Khan acha hai. Media says usko vote dena hai, to aadhi duniya usko vote de deti hai. So media says sustainability is the way to go. I kid you not, 2 साल बाद हर बच्चे को पता होगा sustainability क्या है. And I will not have to tell it, nobody will have to say it, no leader is required for it anymore. So, is the way we are pushing that message forward. And I believe that, you know, organizations like that have a great...
Suppose sequence ulta hota. We done the sustainability session in the first half, we probably had more people. So instead of sequencing in our mind, हमने पहले उसको रखा reimagining business फिर sustainability.
Thank you very much, and the last point, valid point, next time we will take it, surely take it forward. But I think we had a great event, and thank you all of you for taking it seriously and showing up. I think it was very gratifying to have the kind of crowd that we had today. Once again, thank you to the department for having given us the opportunity. We have with us the Director, Ministry of Youth Affairs, Pankaj, here with us. I would like to invite him to say a few words before we conclude.
Thank you, ma'am. So as Secretary ma'am had already introduced the concept, the approach of the Department of Youth Affairs, so it is heartening to see that we have had so engrossing discussions and great ideas from all of you. So from the Department of Youth Affairs side, I would like to thank you for coming here today and sharing your valuable inputs. And you may like to see that these themes, these 5 themes that we have selected for the youth, we believe that these are very relevant themes, and once we have relevant discussions, we want to involve all sectors of the economy, all sections of the society, and we believe that by doing so, we can create a Jan Bhagidari movement where we have those ideas and we can collate those ideas and we can present it to the government, to the Y20, the Youth 20 Engagement Group, so that they find a place in the final policy document. So thank you once again for organizing this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, everyone. We will see you again, hopefully very soon. Thank you for making it.